Hello and welcome to Epworth in Action. I'm your host, Pastor Steve Taylor. I'm the associate pastor here at Epworth United Methodist Church, and we're so glad you've joined us for this episode of Epworth in Action. And this is kind of a special episode for us because for many months, or several months anyway, we have had an empty sanctuary, Scott. And I tell you, it's been different.
It has.
Been very different. But this coming Sunday, we get to open back up somewhat anyway, as far as having people in the actual sanctuary and in the congregation here during worship. So we've got some things that are going to be taking place with that. And so, Scott, we've got some restrictions, and we've got some things that's going to take place during all that. Why don't you explain a little bit of what we're going to have?
Yeah. Before that, I was just thinking about, what was it, in mid-March? How many of us were tuning in for the Thunder game, and then everything came to a halt.
No Thunder game.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, okay, we'll be out of the sanctuary. We won't, we have people here for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And then the couple of weeks, it seemed reasonable that not only the end of March, but April, we would not be here together. And so I kind of in my mind started thinking, okay, 1st of May we'll be back together, and it's gone longer than we've expected, but we wanted
and now
to
we're
make sure.
in June.
Yeah, but we wanted to make sure we were safe and we were following the
Absolutely.
best practices we could. So
you bet. And we're kind of watching those COVID numbers still as well, so
Right.
this could change, but at this point, this
Right.
Sunday we're at least have a few people here.
That's right. And kind of the first thing about us coming back is we're going to continue to be on TV. We're going to continue to
Right.
have our online presence. And so if you aren't comfortable yet, you should not feel the need, the necessity to be here this Sunday. We still have other ways for you to connect, and that's okay. Feel fine about that.
Yes.
We'll be happy to see you when the time's right for you to be back with us. And that's kind of the first part of this decision making, so that whether someone is sick,
Right.
whether they're in a vulnerable category either by age or by health, or just don't feel quite comfortable yet to be back, that should make the decision to stay home.
You stay put, yeah.
Yeah, and then secondly, we're going to ask that everybody park in the north parking lot,
Right.
and to come in through the north entry that comes in beside the chapel on the way into the sanctuary. That way, we're going to have one route where everybody's coming in. We ask that you not show up more than 15 minutes early for the service. We're going to space out. We've blocked off every other pew. And so we'll have that kind of spacing. There are also, then as you're seated, we're going to make sure that we try to kind of checkerboard, even though there will be a pew in between, we still want to not have people sitting directly behind others, with that 2 pews there. So that's going to be a part of how we do our seating. We ask that everybody wear masks. We're expecting that everyone will wear a mask in the service. Not for children. They have a hard time with that. In fact, it leads to, as we all probably become aware, how much we touch our face, but it leads to a lot more facial touching and more issues with children that way. Put me in the child category in that sense.
But I pull on mine too.
Yeah. And so we'll be wearing our mask. Things that you won't see, but we're going to have the air circulating throughout the whole service. That's what we've been directed as the best practice for congregations, so that will be the case. The praise band will be playing and singing, but we're asking that congregants not sing. You can kind of hum or maybe sing softly as you're there and seated in the pew, but those are going to be some of the expectations. There'll be a number of other things that we'll be doing just to make sure that we keep this as safe as possible. But as you come in, those are kind of the things that you need to know. The one other thing is we miss each other. We're going to see each other, and we're going to have a tendency to want to stop and visit and connect and maybe shake hands or embrace, and we just need to hold off on those things. When we come into the building, we want to come in, get seated in the sanctuary, be here. We'll leave in an orderly fashion out, and then once you get to the parking lot, that's, you're on your own time.
And it's open air too.
Yeah, it's open air.
Yeah.
So there'll be time to be able to visit out there, but again, we want to keep that safe distancing even.
You mentioned about the singing part, and kind of explain that a little bit on why we're not wanting to really sing out loud like we're normally used to.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, quite honestly, in all this has been the hardest for me to think about worship, because I didn't think about it at first. But what we've learned is that when we sing, as John Wesley said, we should sing heartily, and so we tend to project, we voice our song, our joy, and when we do so, it causes a greater spread of the droplets. And should somebody be carrying the virus, then it becomes a situation where other members of the congregation could easily be infected through the COVID virus.
Right, and as you mentioned earlier, we're going to have every other row, so I know a lot of us have that normal tendency to want to sit in the same place all the time, but the way we have it right now, you may not be able to do that. You may have to change your routine. Of course, you've been out of the routine probably for several months now, so it might be good to find a new place to sit, at least for the time being, as we have every other pew blocked off. So that would also be
right.
Good as well.
That's right. Yeah, I think we're going to. This is all going to be new. We're all learning in this process, and we've all made our best study and insight into all this. But we can even tell as we watch on the news that the information that we receive from those who are experts that they're learning as they go in this process too. So we're doing our best to keep up with that and stay on top. But
I'm excited about having people in here again, though. I know the first Sunday you preached, when after all this hit and we closed the sanctuary, that was tough.
It was. It's really been an unusual thing, and we have the 3 cameras that are here, and we had those who were here leading worship, and then pretty soon, I guess, a few members of the church decided to come in and to put signs with names where all the folks in the congregation sit. And those kind of helped, and because as you know, in preaching, there's a bit of feedback that we get from each other, and to be able to see, and you miss it. And so it's good to be back and see one another and have that feedback.
You bet. And so again, like Scott said, we're still going to have our online service on our YouTube channel and on Facebook Live, as well as on Suddenlink Channel 6. So if you don't feel comfortable coming back in yet, I know my wife is going to be one of those because her immune system is a little bit compromised after her surgeries and stuff. So please feel free to stay home, stay safe. That's the main thing as we go through this and we start to get back to somewhat of a normalcy.
Yeah. And I know some of you can't wait. Some of you really have been anxious to get back, and that's going to be good too. The thing is, we all feel what we feel, and you shouldn't feel bad or make someone else feel bad because they feel differently or you feel differently than another. What you feel is what you feel, and we're gonna and you should respond out of that situation.
So as we move forward, Scott, this Sunday we're back in a worship setting with people in the sanctuary, and the church is coming back together. We are. I'm excited. I'm a little anxious too. I think we probably all are, and I look forward to seeing you as you come and are here. Back those several weeks ago, I remembered something that as a child we all kind of learned. You probably remember it too. You'd fold your fingers together and you'd say, this is the church and this is the steeple, and then you open the doors
and you see all the people, right? And for the last several weeks that we open the doors and there aren't people here to see. It's more like on the outside that the church is out in a way. And that maybe in a way reminds us that church isn't just to be gathered here, but we are to be the church out into the world. But when we haven't had that opportunity to be gathered, it's going to feel nice to be able to be together again. So I look forward to being able to open the doors and see all the people this coming Sunday.
You bet. Scott, thank you. We'd like to thank you again for joining us for this week's episode of Epworth in Action. Again, we air this initial airing on Wednesday evenings at 7 o'clock on our YouTube live stream channel, as well as Facebook Live and on Suddenlink Channel 6. So make sure you join us for that, and it'll be repeated throughout the rest of the week and the first part of the week on Suddenlink Channel 6. But we're so glad you joined us for this week's episode of Epworth in Action. Have a blessed night.